Hi, this is Günther speaking. Good morning. It's my new effort here on live streaming on YouTube and on Facebook. And I'm here, of course, with my Free Iran, with my NATO flag, and of course, with Ukraine. You can see it, I think it's very clearly visible. And I'm talking to you this Monday morning where Mr. Trump has still not intervened in Iran. And that's, of course, something I have called for. And I'm calling here again, Mr. Trump, come and liberate Iran. And let's go. Monday, it's actually Monday, the time is ripe. There is no question about it. And somehow you are still not doing it. It's for me a mystery, and I don't know what kind of military, strategic, political consideration keeps you from intervening, but it's absolutely wrong. You must intervene. And the Europeans, we have denominated now the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, that's a state institution, as a terror organization. So basically, Iran is a terror state for all extent and purposes. And we will stand with you, Mr. President Trump, not on Greenland, not on anything else, but on this one, yes. And of course, it gives us the opportunity to liberate Crimea and the Donbass in the shadow of the Iranian liberation. Russia will be extremely busy and our enemies are in retreat. So the thing is, this moment, and I think that's why there is this massive hesitation. It's of course a history making moment because it's ultimately similar to the entry of the United States in the First World War in 1917, in the Second World War in 41, in the Cold War in 49. The United States of America is entering the war on the side of the free world. And of course, everything is connected because our enemies are connected. And Iran is the vital element in the axis of evil. It's in a way even the hub in that. And it's, of course, a huge energy supplier, especially for China. And that's, of course, very, very important. So if you not intervene, I think the Epstein scandal will eat the presidency up, and you will be a complete failure, and Iran will be nuclearized. They will get the nuclear weapons very, very fast, because at least I would do it in the side of the Ayatollahs if they have basically now Trump is chickening out. And then definitely the Ayatollahs will get the nukes from Pakistan because Pakistan is very worried anyhow about Balochistan. And so the Pakistanis or the Chinese or the Russians or the North Koreans, the Iranians will have the money to buy and they will find the supplier, and Iran will be nuclearized under Trump's presidency. I think that would be some of the worst results, and it would show the total failure of the Trump presidency, going down into the Epstein scandal and going down into the complete failure. And that would be the result of the absolute disaster of the Trump failure to intervene. I know there's a lot of people now intervening in Washington to try to stop Trump, and hopefully they will not succeed. But I must make the case here very clearly on my first live stream here on Riverside towards YouTube and Facebook that intervention is the only justified mean. There are so many aspects, and I have discussed about many of them. But the first of all is the moral cause. Yeah? The moral cause of regime changing a regime which has killed 30 or 40,000 of its own people just in this year, and it's just February now, the 2nd of February. And of course, they are in this absolute bloodbath of the 8th of January and the 12th of January. And they even boast about it and have made it clear that with ruthless violence they have killed all the protesters. And there have been, the reports are now coming out. And it's if you have emotions and if you have a feeling, you can only feel the absolute horror and of course, compassion with the young people of Iran, which are hoping for a normal life and then get shot down and trampled over and tortured and executed by such a terrible religious dictatorship of the most extreme kind. because in 79 it was never, you know, nobody could have ever thought that they will succeed. There was a general protest movement, of course, supported by the Soviet Union, but there was religious fervor and, of course, the feeling of anti-corruption, which the Soviet Union always uses against our friends, and they always claim they are corrupt, corrupt, corrupt. Shah was not more or less corrupt than most of the governments at that time. And of course, then the most extreme form of violent regime, similar like in 1917, has prevailed during the revolution. And that is a tragedy which now needs to be fixed after soon 50 years. And now it's the moment because world opinion is with Trump on intervention. And if he doesn't do that, he will be the worst failure of human history. And I hope he will, because I can not see any other way for him to be somehow entering history or even be successful or even stay in power for 2027, because there will be certainly impeachment after a complete failure of his policies during the year. And it's only foreign policy which can prevail. There is, of course, complete collapse of this economic, the tariffs are a disaster. The migration policy is now rock bottom after killing two of innocent bystanders, basically. And then I think the massive protest of the American population against this migration policy, which is absolutely justified, the protest, they will be going on the whole winter now and the whole year and lead to an absolute defeat of President Trump. So even from an electoral point of view, it's the best thing. It's one of the few things I even agree with the assessment of President Vucic, who I wish only the worst. Yeah? But now it's if he doesn't intervene, I really cannot understand what's going on anymore. Oh, I'm losing my NATO flag again. Very bad on live TV. Okay, my little improvised studio is, of course, with these limitations here. I see. Guys, yes, the intervention must be coming, and it will ultimately. I'm really waiting every evening now, ready on the intervention, and I was very much looking forward for Friday, for Saturday, for Sunday. Now it's Monday again, and I really don't know why we are waiting so long. And it's for me something like a complete disappointment. Every morning I wake up and I hope that we have already and orders for intervention, because it's the only way. And we should also help the Americans, yeah. But the task of the European Union here and the European Union member countries that I made clear in many videos already is, the Iranian liberation will be probably done by the British and mainly the Americans, yeah, because there is not this naval and assets in the region where the European member countries could really help. But what we can do is political support, and that's what we should do, of course. No longer this kind of Austrian populism about the international law and Maduro's kidnapping was against the law. This is all nonsensical. What we need to do is very clear. We need to support the American intervention, and then simultaneously, in a kind of a pincer movement, in a kind of a absolute logical movement, we should, that's why I have always this Ukrainian flag here. We should, of course, in the moment the Americans give the signal for intervention against Iran, it's basically the Pearl Harbor moment. That is, America intervenes. This time the Americans have an Iranian first strategy, different to the Europe first strategy of World War II. And then the Americans will do that, and we have simultaneously the task to financially, militarily, with weapons to support Ukraine's liberation of Crimea. Crimea is the weak link and for the Russian defenses. And once the political green light is there from the German Chancellor, the Ukrainians can liberate Crimea. And of course, they need the weapons, the towers, and all the other material and all the financial political backing we can do. We must also send our troops into the west of Ukraine to relieve the defense of the Belarusian borders and many logistical military tasks to be done west of the Dnieper. And then the Ukrainians have the manpower, the material to liberate Crimea, and that must be simultaneously during the Iranian liberation. And this double strike, Putin cannot survive and he will fall. And of course, because the stakes are exactly so high now militarily and geostrategically, and then Putin is putting all the pressure on Trump. And you understand already that the Epstein files are open, so everybody in his clear mind can understand that Epstein is a tool of Putin, was a tool of Putin to influence the American politics. And the rise of Epstein goes parallel to the rise of Putin, and the methods are the same, and the money's origin is also logically from Putin. And much of this is history and now already in the files, and we will learn much more about that one. But of course, Putin is desperate to stop Trump to intervene in Iran because he understands as well how connected this situation is, and also the crisis in China is connected to that because all these authoritarian fools they are seeing that their time has come, and they are also desperate, and so we do have to manage all the things well. We, of course, don't want nuclear escalation, but we must also be very clear that we have our opportunity now to really once and for all remove and to rewind history in terms of the Russian Revolution and the Chinese Revolution and the Iranian Revolution, the three most tragic accidents of 20th century history, which we have had to face, and the people there, the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians, had to suffer. And now it's the opportunity in 2026 to remove the results of that tragic accidents of 1917, 49 and 79. And that's, of course, what we want and what should happen. And will it happen? I'm waiting for it. I predicted it in television when I was recently invited to national TV, and I am absolutely confident it will happen. Yes, I want to also outline because on the weekend I was really very active also to outline and to make it clear because what we miss a little bit is who is our enemies. We must be very clear, and I have defined 7 enemy countries. It's very important to have a clarity in that one because then we think about it. What is, there's a lot of confusion out there, and it's 7 and it's very clear. It's Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Syria, and of course Nigeria, and of course Cuba. And one by one, you can see this list of 7 will be diminishing in 2026. I cannot say that all of them will be gone and will be either dismantled or democracies or regime changed, but most of them in this year 2026, they will be in a way no longer run by the axis of resistance, as we have seen it in Venezuela, and we have also learned that in in that case of where else? No, Venezuela was the first one. Cuba is the next one because it will be tried out, and then Iran, and then of course we will see if the Americans will also intervene closer in Nigeria. And of course, China and Russia are nuclear powers, so there will be no intervention. China will fall in its internal power struggle, and Russia will be indirectly defeated in Ukraine, and that's very good. So, and I'm confident that will be happening after the enormous atrocities and brutality they have again committed against the Ukrainians in the winter of 2026. They will definitely pay the price, and they will also be punished severely after the fall of all this, the end of all these negotiations, which are completely meaningless, waste of time, because there will be no result, and it's only losing time. So our task is to supply Ukraine financially, militarily for victory, and that's what we should do. Good. The seven countries, I've made it very clear. These are the seven enemy states. There are some smaller ones, but the most important are these seven ones, and they will be also facing the consequence of their evil deeds in 2026. So seven hostile organizations. I want to make it also very clear that we have seven organizations which we need to dismantle. This is basically the Russian-Chinese world order. Putin and Xi have developed, of course, with the central one is BRICS, and then it's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and that's number two, the CSTO, the anti-NATO, the EIU, the Eurasian Economic Union, the anti-EU. These are four, and then the totally appeasement, foolish Obama G20, that's number five, and the OPEC number six, and the seventh is the CIS, which is already crumbling. And all these very Russian-focused organizations, CSTO is already in the breaking down. EIU very much breaking down. CIS, Moldova has left now officially, very good. I call on everybody to leave all these free organizations. And of course, G20 is a bit of an issue. You know, this is a typical appeasement, get all the bullies and authoritarians in to talk. This was never a good idea. We should really focus on the OECD and the G7 and develop a much more enlarged OECD. And I've called already many times for a summit of new trade partners organized by OECD. We should really ask the countries of the world if they want to have a free trade agreement with the EU and by part of the OECD, then they shall not be in BRICS. And that will be the choice for India, for Brazil, and for South Africa. If they want to be on our side, let's be on our side and then not on the other side. And that's very logical. And then we ask them, we invite them. And the next time, now I've been very soft on Modi, but when Modi will be again meeting Putin and hugging him, I will call for ex-India again and for a non-ratification of the free trade agreement with India, and the pain will rise on all the ones who are so-called neutrals. That's evil neutrality, and neutrality is evil, immoral in the case of India and as well in the case of Austria, Malta and Ireland. Yes, and we will abolish it as well in Austria. Be sure about it. And I will do my part, and that's my historic mission, which I will work on. Good. Now let's come to that. Was not all the organizations. I think just to be clear on seven enemies. Yeah, seven enemies. This is like a seminar here. Russia, China, Iran, Russia, China, Iran. Then it's North Korea. It's Syria. It's Nigeria. It's Cuba. Many of them will be changing. So watch all seven of them, and all the minor ones will get the message. And then it's also that we have seven organizations. CIS, it's the old Soviet Union. Nobody needs that Commonwealth of Independent Nation anymore. Leave it fast. It is, of course, the OPEC. That's a cartel for which we should need to kick out of Austria. It's a cartel of carbon producing monopolists who are exploiting the global consumers to benefit a few authoritarian regimes. Must go, must be kicked out of the European Union, must be also told to our allies to leave it, and we must put it on the list of hostile organizations. The anti-EU, which Russia built, is anyhow dysfunctional, but leave it. And then, of course, CSTO, the anti-NATO of Russia, leave it. And then it's, of course, the G20, a symbol of Obama's appeasement in the financial crisis. Yeah, we don't need to work with all our enemies to stabilize the global system. No, we can do that within OECD. And that's the organization also in competition with BRICS. And BRICS is evil, it's our enemy. And of course, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which we also don't need, because we have the Vienna-based OSZE, and we can now invite India into OSZE and all the Eurasian countries who are not in Shanghai Cooperation. And then we make it very clear we have two organizations and we have them competing. Shanghai Cooperation enemy, OSCE ours. You choose one of them and let's kick Russia out of OSCE, which I'm campaigning intensively now already. And let's get Kosovo into OSCE because that's the only reasonable way. I was very happy to see Mr. Lajczak. Happy, like Mr. Lajczak, who I really don't like, and he was an enemy of Kosovo, and he was supposedly the impartial special envoy of the socialist Borrell for Kosovo and Serbia. And he is a good friend of Epstein, we find out. And they're chatting a little bit about girls and about how strong he is. You see, this is the reality. This socialist educated in Russia, you cannot trust, who is educated in Russia and is from the kind of socialist direction. Anti-Kosovo, no surprise. And anti-Ukraine, no surprise. And this is how it is, yeah, in this reality of the world. And Putin uses money and honey traps and his compromat on a global scale via Epstein in the past, but he's still using it. And the film Sparrows, I think it's called Red Sparrows, is absolutely realistic movie about world affairs. It seems now Hollywood has already shown us the way. Good. That's the reality of this morning. As well, what keeps me busy in the morning and this week is very important global attention on Bosnia because there was this nationalistic kind of summit of the so-called patriots, most of them in the pockets of Putin in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem of all places. I don't know what guys around Putin have organized that, but there was a lot of yeah, Sebastian Kurz was there, Milorad Dodik and Wilimski and all these people were there. And they were just 3 4 days in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And now Dodik comes back ahead of the decisive recall elections on the 8th of February. He comes back and he tweets excitedly for the right of Republika Srpska for secession. And watch that space now because that's very, very, very dangerous. Because Putin always wanted to have a second front. In Kosovo with Albin Kurti and with Vjosa, he really went nowhere because the situation is much more protected by the Americans, and Vucic is very, very careful not to get too dangerous activities. We will see how far he will go in 2026. But Dodik seems now, after losing his office and basically losing the elections, he had to fake it. He is now encouraged by people around Netanyahu, I'm afraid. And then he is tweeting for secession. And of course, that will never happen. That we cannot allow. Bosnia is a unified country. It's a multi-ethnic and multi-religious country. And it is a EU candidate country and it will join NATO. And if there is a secession, that will anyhow not happen. Yeah? But if it goes full into extreme modus, it was the last time I offered him already to go Saulus to Paulus. If he now goes full extreme, he will face the lot of consequences. And of course, I call again for the people of Republika Srpska, that region of Bosnia-Herzegovina, to vote for the opposition candidate, yeah, for Branko Mlanuša. And he should have been elected already in November. He should have been also now, it should be the case that he will win on Sunday. And then we have the chance to recognize Kosovo from Bosnia and join NATO. And everything will be much more decent in Bosnia. And if then he wants to have an escalation, yes, we will provide the military assets to deal with Mr. Dodik and his secessionist forces. Yeah, so he will probably end up in Moscow with Mr. Khamenei and with Mr. Yanukovych, and I don't know which kind of Assad. Yeah, exactly what kind of collection of former dictators are now close to Moscow in these garden villas. And yes, then after the fall of Putin, you're gonna have to find another supporter somewhere further east or refugee in Siberia. Looks bad, yeah. These are the options which are there, and this will be this week one of the main activities of mine, and I will be very active on that one. Of course, it will be all overshadowed by the most important question of the liberation of Iran, and of course to make sure that Ukraine has the resources during this winter to stay in the fight, but prepare basically for the reconquest of Crimea, because the winter is even harder in Russia. And of course, now we have to make the settlements after the 90 billion loan, which we have done in December from the EU. Now, of course, the military supplies have to accelerate, and then the reconquest and the liberation of Crimea must come. And that will be the end of the war. And the end of the war is victory by us and not a negotiated settlement by Witkov. Just to be very, very clear. Yes, and this is on that side. And on Ukraine, I will also give a major speech at the conference where I have the opportunity. I will not go. I'm probably too afraid and it's too cold, and it's more reasonable to do that online. But on the weekend, I will present my failing a plan for Ukraine, including, of course, economic integration and political integration in the EU and NATO, the euro for Ukraine, further 800 billion euro bond issue for the reconstruction of Ukraine and the integration and the victory and the liberation of Ukraine, which we should have done already in December, but we didn't do it. But that's the basic parameters of the plan to integrate Ukraine, also to issue the euro now, and to make sure we and Ukraine, there is no difference. The Ukraine is EU, and we are the Ukraine. There is no difference, and that's very logically. Yes, this is my half hour, a new live, which I will now talk about various key issues in the mornings, and I will keep you busy. Maybe not every day I will do it. It depends a little bit of my capacities here. I will also look for more support, and also for you, hopefully, to subscribe this podcast, to also subscribe me on X, where the effort is now really very successful. I'm now with this, I have to read, I'm very close to 143,000 followers on X, and also then it's getting towards 30,000 on Instagram, which is also a very good medium. I feel now get 29,000 it is, and now, and then you see a lot of my videos as well on Instagram, and a lot of my calls, but most of my work is on X actually, and on YouTube, where the podcast is continuing. I'm also continuously looking for interesting guests, and I have already some lined up for this week. And the activities will also support the interest of my direction, and many of my predictions will be absolutely vindicated during the month of February, and the month of February 2026. Let's call it the month where victory will be starting. And then obviously Substack, I'm also very active now in the Austrian debate about voluntary service, prolongation of military duties, and of course NATO membership of Austria. And that is my big campaign here as the chairman of the Austrian Committee for NATO enlargement for Ukraine, for Kosovo, for Bosnia, and for the European Union. And that is some of my activities. And I have a lot of other activities planned for the energy sector, for flat tax, obviously, and of course for EU enlargement. I just, maybe also interesting, I'm now extended my campaign from EU 37 to EU 47, because we have to think much more bolder, integrate more countries, and even I will campaign now for Greenland in the EU, and for Canada in the EU, and of course for Ukraine. I do that since 10 years, but you will be not surprised for Kosovo in the EU, and that is now on Instagram a very nice campaign of mine. And I'm also very grateful if you see my Patreon page, yeah, where I also publish all the, it's also very good, because I met in the train. I'm now getting often ask in the trains or in the public places, people start to recognize me. And in Vienna, and I would like to, and they said, I've seen only one podcast of you. I would like to show you a little bit that it's the on Spotify. This is basically not one podcast, but I have now, since I opened this second channel, the Spotify, when I call it Günther Fellinger Podcast, this is now basically 50 podcasts in 3 months. It's good output. We are just a small two-person media activity, but we have now really, I'm really very proud of this activity here with all this. And I have also on Apple Podcast, it is also useful maybe to see that I have this very long tradition already. I do that since 2021. The podcast Pax Europiana, that's my the personal channel, and I have here already the last one uploaded here I see is 2021, but I'm here. I start in 2021, and it's 400 podcasts here as well, and everything of which I say here is valid still today. And I have not uploaded the 2026 material, but this will also come, and I will be very active on this channel as well. Pax Europiana will be coming, and that's also my plan. And also on Substack, and I publish also this book about NATO enlargement and about the so-called Fellinger Doctrine, which is always a bit controversial. I don't want to split up, break up all the countries. We have to see each country individually. On the weekend, I got attacked because I was proposing this for Iran prior. I'm very happy if Iran continues, copies the Iraqi model of a federal Iraq, it's totally fine. But if that's not possible, then we have to see after the revolution. Now all forces need to unite and work together to topple the Khamenei regime. That's absolutely the most important priority now. And of course, the liberation of Crimea and the support of Ukraine. And the whole unity agenda, you know that already. I talked a lot now about enemies, but of course, we must also be much more united, all in the EU, in the Euro, in NATO. And that is the logic, also the WTO enlargement and the OECD enlargement. A lot of organizations, but our global system works. And of course, we have to make sure that it works as well. But we were just a little bit rusty and a little bit complicated. And, the Russians did what they could in order to minimize us and stop us and play our internal divisions. Like now with Brexit, it's proven, and many of these results will come up in the Epstein files. I'm sure about it. Yeah, that is absolutely clear that the Brexit is a Russian-funded project which we need to stop and reverse, and the UK must come back to the European Union. Yes, and here we are. Yes, my most important, if I can show it as well here, this is of course my Twitter account with 143,000 followers. It's actually very, very good. And I'm also calling you to follow me on this account. And I'm really very grateful if you do. And also I will do once a month Fire Rise update. That's also some activities. I'm really happy and was on the weekend active as well. And that is one of the things I really like. And I will support also the young community of fans. And it's also ideologically in many ways. You see me now here in this live stream. And if you can follow me on that live stream, it is also very good. And subscribe me here on the YouTube Today's World. This is one of the benchmarks for success. And I have this 16,500 followers now, and I'm happy for more. And you are very welcome. And I will produce as much content as I can during all my other activities, but that's exactly what I want to do. I will also start more Austrian activities and focus on the reform of Austria. It's the year of Austrian reform and most of all NATO membership, but also the introduction of nuclear power in Austria, of the flat tax of 15% in Austria. This is very important. And of course, to purge all the Putinists, as I have called many times. Everybody who loves Putin can go, and please send them to Siberia. Yes, exactly. And I'm very much in favor of openness. So everybody who wants to be here and who wants to work here, live here, that's freedom. I'm a philosopher of freedom, so I'm very much in favor of freedom, no matter what your ethnicity, religion. If you want to live in Austria and the European Union and you are a peaceful individual who wants to work, contribute within the framework of the law, invest, innovate, work, contribute in tourism, in service, in IT, in construction, you're very welcome. This is my role and my policy. But if you are for Khamenei, you are an Islamist, if you are a Putinist, if you are a Chinese spy, and if you are against us as a Western world, and then I would really recommend to expedite you to where you came from or in some other dark corner of the world where such views are fine. And I'm absolutely for freedom for speech, but if you are enemy combatant, you are an enemy combatant. Yeah? And if you support Putin, if you support Khamenei, if you support the Nigerian butchers, if you support communism in Cuba, you are not welcome in Austria and the European Union, and you certainly can remigrate where you came from, or if you're Austrian or EU, I really don't care. I would change the laws and send our enemies packing, no matter what is their religion, their ethnicity, or their other. I'm absolutely tolerant to everybody who is peaceful, but I have no tolerance for our enemies at all. Good, to make it very clear. I have also no tolerance for pedophiles and for Epstein acolytes, and we must investigate all these things very clearly, and we will, and everything will come out, and all this Russian-funded pedophile network and all their compromat will come to the public, and it will be a better time because all these evil persons will be in jail or will be no longer in the public arena. Yes, very good. Better times are coming. Justice will prevail. Yes, this is my morning live. It's the first time I use this instrument. I like it. I hope you like it as well. I can stream to YouTube and to Facebook. So it's also some innovation for me. And I will do that now regularly. And thanks a lot for your attention. And please subscribe me if you can support me as well on. There is also the opportunity, buy me a coffee, Patreon. I have already some supporters, or simply Patreon you have seen actually. I can show you that one as well. We have also prepared that one. There's several levels now on Patreon. I have to show. Yeah, here it is, Patreon. Yeah, there's several points now, and we have all the podcasts as well on Patreon here. And then we have also a new folder here, but also it's 3 different levels like European Patriot Council, and that's very good. And I see that is a useful way also when you're globally. You can also join our association or do other forms of fundraising, but it's the most simple form in Patreon. You can support me, buy me a coffee, and keep our freedom, the voice of freedom here from Vienna alive, and to kicking the media project to be active. And that's exactly what I also will do the coming years in order to support the transformation into a stronger Europe, a more united Europe, and a patriotic Europe, which is not paid by Russia, but paid by the public here in Europe who want to have a strong economic, secure, prosperous and free Europe, and we will achieve that. Good. Thanks a lot for your attention. my first live intervention, and more to come here from Günther Fehlinger podcast, Pax Europiana, Strong Europe, and Success of NATO. And please liberate Iran and Ukraine. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye from Vienna.